Can you picture it? The smell of a sanitized hospital. An exhausted mother lays in her bed, wide awake. In her arms is a baby just born hours ago, and next to her is her husband. He looks down with such pride. Can you see it? Baby's first moments cradled in its mother's arms. Bright hospital lights. Father looking down proudly in wonderment and excitement. Mother and father catch each other's gaze as their foreheads touch. So much joy and love. It plays out almost in slow-mo. Baby cries, and both parents look back down in admiration. Can we just pretend for just a little longer that that was the way it was? So, my name is Joey Littleton, and I was born December 30th of 1998. I was born in a little place called Vietnam. My mother had a C-section with me, but she abandoned me at the hospital shortly after giving birth to me. And shortly after that, I was taken to the orphanage, and I lived in the orphanage for almost 2.5 years of my life. I was adopted by an American couple. She was white, but he was Vietnamese, and they already had 3 of their own biological kids, and I was the only one that was adopted. And I was adopted when I was about 2 or 2.5, so I came to the States at a really, really young age here in Colorado. They were a Christian family that God told them that they needed to adopt me. It wasn't a good situation for almost 13 years. It was a very abusive, both physically and mentally, and it was mostly from my mother, my adoptive mother. My adoptive father went off to Iraq for almost 6 months and was deployed, and I noticed that that's when she became more abusive towards me, and that's when the abuse really started. What does legacy mean to you? Have you wasted yours? Or are you still creating it?
She wasn't a mom at all. She used to do these things where she would make things disappear in the house, and she would gather the family together, and she would tell them, well, it looks like phone has stolen again, something went missing. She would become very, very aggressive to the point that she would attack me on a lot of occasions when her hands would wrap around my neck. I don't know who she saw, but she didn't see me. I don't know who she became in those instances. I always thought it was my fault that she was the way she was. And for the longest time, I always felt guilty about that. One of the phrases that I really grew up with in this household was, when are you going to be a part of the family? I didn't know how to answer. And she was so controlling in that situation. My adoptive family would get together and they would go downstairs to watch Christmas movies. And I would be upstairs by myself because I wasn't allowed to watch with them. And something that I learned to do, that I still kind of do to this day, is I would crawl underneath the Christmas tree and I would just lay there and I would look up at the lights and I would just escape the hell that I was living in for just the briefest moment. And everything was right and peaceful. One of the other things that my adopted mother used to do is she would control how I had friends, especially in middle school and elementary. Whenever I tried to make friends, she would have me go up to my friends' parents, and she would make me sit down with them and she would make me tell them I'm a liar, I'm a manipulator, and that I steal things. And that's why I had no friends growing up. She got the school to make me eat lunch in the janitor's office away from other kids. It was so inhumane looking back at it that I don't understand how a school would let her do this and not do anything about it.
Do you ever dream? Or have you forgotten how?
When I was 13, the state finally realized what was happening because they were getting calls out on a daily basis saying that I was attacking my mother, when in reality it was her attacking me. And it got to a point where the police were realizing what was happening and they took me away. The first year, 6 months to a year, I lived in a mental institute because that's where the state could fit me. That place was horrifying and horrible, and I went back to the mental institute that I had previously been living at. And then from there, I went to another boys group home. Ellicott is where I came up with the name Joey Littleton, because I really wanted to break away from my original name. So I came up with Joey Littleton. And mind you, I was very short, very, very short going into freshman year. And so I thought, oh, I might be little, but I have tons of love to give. So I put them together and came up with Joey Littleton. My caseworker at the time, his name was John Hupka. I remember he sat me down in the living room of the boys' home that I was in, and he looked at me and he told me, "You don't belong here. You belong with a family." I finally made it into what would have been foster care and my first foster family. And they really wanted me to be an all-American Christian son. And it didn't work out. So then I was sent to another temporary family who I still have contact with, even though they've moved out of state.
If heaven was real, who would be the first one you'd look for? Who would look for you?
Then I went to my third foster family, which were two dads up in Arvada. One of the best situations to happen. And to this day, I still have contact, I still see them. But I remember being in my high school, I was finally opening up
to people. And I was finally letting down my guard, especially with my foster dad. He was becoming like my best friend at this time. And then I remember coming home one day, I think it was after a theater practice, and I found him face down on the ground. He had had a stroke. He was different after that, which isn't his fault. But all of that letting down my guard and finally opening up to a person went away instantly in a night. So what I started doing was I was working at Macy's at the time, and I had met a man down in Aurora. I was Ubering and lifting from my job to Aurora, which was like an hour, almost on a daily, to try and figure out how to be on my own. And this gentleman helped me get my first apartment and was helping me way more than the state was, which I was very appreciative of at the time. But also, this was when my first relationship was really happening with this guy. And it wasn't working out because I was so insecure and I was just so stressed out. And finally, I graduated high school, I emancipated, and I was on my own for the first time. And this was like 18, 19.
No one stays the same. Sometimes they don't even know that they've changed. It's both terrifying and exhilarating.
I have to say, the foster care system is very broken, but there are some very amazing workers there that are passionate about what they do, that I'm very thankful for. But I feel like there should be better supports, not just for the youth that are in the system, but also for the caseworkers, the people that are doing everything. Because I have seen fires burn out in people. One thing the system is really good at teaching people is that you're not human. How I'm dealing with it today is I'm existing. When the world hates you, doesn't notice you, doesn't see you, sees through you, the best thing you can do is to exist, because it's the biggest middle finger you can give the people that don't care about you. Because from existing comes thriving. And I think that's the proudest thing I've learned recently.
Every road has led me back to 1998. Time and time again. But maybe today, those roads will finally bring me back. Home.